Well, hey, Butch. It's good to be able to meet you and have you join us today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Love what you're doing.
Well, I think it's been pretty fun thus far. We've got to have some pretty interesting conversations that I think are pretty insightful and, I don't know, just fun to share our life experiences with people, right?
Oh, absolutely. I probably share too many, if you ask my wife.
Well, yeah, see, well, this is good. This gives a new venue because our poor wives have to hear us tell the same stories all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And my poor wife was stuck with an old college buddy of mine, and so we retold the same stories that she'd heard and a couple she hadn't heard.
So, so I know a little bit about what you currently do today, right? Sure. Real estate, and I know your background in film.
Right.
So let's kind of start off with that, and then we're going to jump way back and figure out how we got here.
Sure. Yeah. I used to live right around the corner here in college, but yeah, no, I grew up in Liberty, and when I did, during high school, 1976, on election day, they elected to show 3 movies instead of having classes, 3 political films. One was All the King's Men with Broderick Crawford. Okay. Another one was The Last Hurrah with Spencer Tracy. And the other one was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington with Jimmy Stewart. And they were all kind of American political stories, and I was so captured and enamored by it. I knew that since I was a kid, I loved movies. I was a hyperactive child, and my mother, the only way to keep my attention was my mom would let me stay up late with her and watch movies as opposed to just terrorizing the house. And after that experience in high school, I said, man, I'm going to be involved in the movie business. So, in many ways I was. I worked movie crews in Hollywood in the late 80s. I started a little circuit called Screenland Theaters here in Kansas City. I was on the Film Commission. I started the Film Society, started Film Fest Kansas City with some other people. And more recently, for a number of years, I've been involved in a charity. I've been chairman of Thank You Walt Disney, which is a nonprofit that is preserving Walt Disney's Kansas City years and legacy, including the restoration of his original cartoon studio.
That's incredible, and I can't wait to get really into that with you.
Sure.
So what happened? So you graduate high school from Liberty, and then what? You just up and moved to California?
I graduated high school from Liberty, and by that time my father had passed away. So my mother kind of made it clear, you're going to college and you're going to pay for it. So that meant UMKC. I had an opportunity to go to William Jewell, which was a fine college, but my, staying in Liberty, the town I grew up in, and going to college was not on my list. And so coming down to Kansas City, to this neighborhood here, was like going away to college. I mean, we never crossed that river unless we were going downtown for something.
Yeah.
And so it was affordable. I remember my first semester, 15 hours, was $277, and I made $275 putting a roof on a building. So I did that, and as it goes, I got a film, radio, television degree in undergrad, and I got a law degree because the law degree was going to help me be a movie producer. And so but I was able to rough houses, paint houses, learn about real estate, and as it goes in life, I did go out to Hollywood, and as opposed to trying to be a producer, I got on movie crews. I was told if I tried to be a producer, I'd be writing real estate contracts for old studio property. So I worked as a grip and a stunt crew assistant and a bit actor and a lighting tech, and I had a great time, and then learned a lot. But I ended up coming back to Kansas City to take care of some little houses I had bought in college, and sort of realized that being behind the projector might be more enticing than being behind the camera. That is, the exhibition side of the business was really interesting to me, and the production side was great, but you were working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, and you give up your life for chunks of it. And so I stayed in Kansas City and got involved with some guys who'd been in the exhibition business, and had a great time. And in 1996, I'd been back 4 or 5 years. I had purchased the old Commonwealth Theater's headquarters building at 18th and Wyandotte in what is known as Film Row, and is now part of Crossroads. It was nothing back then, and it was a vacant building. But it had a little room that had once housed a screening room. So 2 years after I bought it and put 18 lawyers in there on single office rentals, I ended up restoring the screening room, called it the Old Film Row Screening Room, and I made deals with all the studios, and all the studios went down to Dallas, was where they were all at the time.
Okay.
And I showed trade screenings for other theater owners, and I showed press screenings, mostly to the Kansas City Star, Channel 4, Channel 5, the various media outlets.
Yeah.
And did that for, 6-8 years. And in the meantime, I had purchased an old frozen food facility at 17th and Washington that had, again, had been vacant.
Okay.
And I converted it into office space, and I acquired the rights to the name Screenland. I was going to buy the Screenland Cafe building, and I didn't get it. Turns out a buddy of mine was a high bidder on it, but I knew he didn't have an interest in Screenland, so I ended up trademarking the name. And we opened the first Screenland Theater in the garage of the old Fish Company building in 2004. And we showed sub-art films. I mean, little obscure films from festivals, short Academy Award shorts, various retro pictures. And, Kansas City has a great film community, and we were lucky because of that. And I also had been running the Film Society, so we kind of knew what they wanted to do, and it was fun. And Screenland ended up, Crown Center had a Screenland because the whole family liked going to Screenland, and they wanted one there. And then we had a Screenland in downtown Kansas City, Kansas for about a year, the old Granada, and that was mostly because I loved the old 1928 atmospheric theater. But that didn't last too long. And then we acquired North Kansas City, the old Armour Theater, and the city made a deal with me that if I would put a Screenland in there and I would renovate the building and sprinkle it and do everything, they would effectively give me the building. Sell me the building but forgive the loan, and I would spend another couple of $1 million renovating it.
Yeah.
But it's operating to this day. It now has 4 screens. I sold it a couple of years ago to a couple of young, terrific operators who'd been running it for me for quite a while, and they've taken it to levels that I never could. But they have that passion for the film.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so, did that. And in the meantime, kind of in an ancillary way, I bought that old Commonwealth Theater's building, and then I bought the Universal Pictures building at 17th and Wyandotte. And I kept buying around that neighborhood, and eventually it became the Crossroads, and myself and a bunch of other people put together that sort of organization. And, I decided a long time ago that I was not going to do anything that I didn't want to do. I wasn't going to go and work at a job. I wasn't going to practice law, got that law degree. I did a little bit of law, and it was helpful. The law degree is very helpful to my real estate business. But I knew my 2 passions were architecture and film. And so I was able to marry them, and that makes me a very fortunate guy.
Yeah, so you said something along the way here that I kind of want to go back to. 2 things that I think might be connected, maybe not. One, you said you bought some houses in college, and that's a pretty unique thing for a kid in college to be doing. And then 2, you said that your dad had passed away at an early, how old were you?
I was 15.
15 years old, your dad passed away. And how many siblings did you have?
3, all younger.
3. And from then till you went into college, did your mom remarry, or did she ever remarry, or did she raise you from there on out?
She raised us from there on out. She never remarried. I remember as the oldest, she kind of took me aside and said, we're going to lose our house. We haven't made a house payment in 6 months, but I need you to buy groceries. And I said, okay, I can make house payments. She goes, no, I want you to do groceries. I'm going to see if I can work it out with the VA. And fortunately, the Veterans Administration did not allow foreclosure on the widow of a veteran for 12 months after his death or her death. And so my mother actually ended up living in that house the rest of her life, another 40 years.
Wow.
But my mother, you know, she just made it very clear, I'm going to depend on you to do things. And I don't know why, probably because she inflated my ego so much, but I was so confident that we could keep the house, and I was confident that I could do things. And so I mowed the grass, I did the dishes, I always wanted to take care of things, and I always wanted to take care of my siblings. And we, you know, we had probably the greatest thing my mother did was to be sure that my siblings and I all remain close. I mean, we're all very close. We're all in our 60s now, and we talk all the time, and we get together whenever we can. My brother's in Las Vegas, and my sisters are up north of the river, and you know, it's turned out to be really quite a good journey. But you know, my mother was. And I have to say, you know, my mother is probably the main reason for any success I've ever had in life, whether it be in business or just in living my day-to-day life. She was, if you got time for a little aside story.
Yeah, no, this is the stuff I love. These are the stories I love. Because I'm with you. I think moms account for a lot more of our success than people initially think about.
Well, of course, my mother said, you know, you got to take care of things. And of course, I'm going to turn 16. I want to buy a car. So I'm thinking about what car I want. And my mom said, okay, the funeral director wants to talk to you, because my mom gave Mr. Pasley my dad's Chevrolet in exchange for burying him, because they had no money.
Wow.
So Mr. Pasley didn't sell his 69 Bel Air yet. And he goes, tell you what I'll do, Pat. I'll sell it to Butch for $300. It's worth probably $500 or $600, but you know, I'm not selling it. And so my mom tells me that, and I go, deal. And of course, my mom says, okay. She says, now, when your brother turns 16, you give him $300. I go, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, Mr. Pasley giving you a car for $600, you're only paying $300. So you got to pay your brother $300 so when he gets a car. I go, yeah, but then I paid $600. I go, what about him? She goes, he'll give $300 to Marcy. And I go, and? She goes, and $300 to Lisa. And I go, well, what does Lisa do? She goes, don't argue with me. Well, that was the end of that. And the irony is, when Lisa turned 16, she was a very young mother, and I ended up buying her a car.
Oh, she never had to pay anything.
So yeah, it was kind of fun. But you know, and my mother was genuinely the single most honest and forthright person I ever knew. She was she just sold houses up in Liberty. I don't think she ever made more than $30,000 a year in her life, because she'd rather travel. But she was everybody's real estate broker up in Liberty, and multi-generational. And I was sitting at dinner, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and talking to a young couple, my wife and I were, and I recognized their last name, and I said, are you related to, it turned out to be their uncles. And I said, oh, I know your family well. And they go, what's your name? And I said, Butch Rigby. And they go, no relation to Pat Rigby in Liberty. I go, well, that was my mother. And they both looked at each other, this young couple, and they're aghast, and they go, your mother was maybe the most influential woman in our lives. I go, what do you mean? She goes, your mom and I were talking about doing some real estate stuff, and I was kind of asking how we could do it. And she said, nope, you got to be 100% above board. And she goes, she looked me in the eye and she said, your name will always be your reputation. And he goes, we thought about that, and we have been honest about everything we ever did. And I go, you know, it really affected me, because if anything described Pat Rigby, it was her unselfish giving to other people, and not just money, but just giving them part of that
wisdom,
that way we should live our lives.
Yeah.
So you know, that makes me very fortunate. It makes me rich in those things that can't be counted with a calculator.
Yes.
You know, so
yes, that is
fun stuff.
That is incredible. That is incredible. So can you recall back to like what you were thinking when you bought your first property in college?
Yeah, you know, I was, my roommate and I were painting houses, and we were just talking about, we paint all these houses. We could buy a little house and fix it up because, you can get them pretty cheap. I found a house in the one ads for $1,500. So I went to this guy and I find the house. It's a little house at 40th and Kensington. And I remember we were going to buy it, and the guy, he has his office downtown. It looks like right out of a movie, out of the film noir. He's got this kind of a wall with a string full of skirts on it and about 3 phones and 9 dead cigarettes on there. And he's looking around and he's answering the phone and he's scheduling stuff. And I'm like, what exactly is it you do anyway? So Tom, I don't know, I'm a kid. And he goes, I provide escorts. So let's just leave it at that. And I go, whatever, So we ended up paying him $1,500 for the house. And then we had to go, and we're trying to fix it up, and I couldn't get a window to work. So I went down in the basement and I took the jack out of my truck and I jacked up the floor. And then we decided, well, we should probably put brick under that. And so I'll bet we didn't have $5,000 invested in that house. And that was my roommate and I. And I had actually, the summer before, I guess that was my second house. But my very first house, a woman came into the real estate office and she had a burned up house in Excelsior Springs, Missouri, and it had 4 apartments in it. So I think I paid her $8,000 for it, and I went and borrowed $5,000 at the bank. And
how old were you?
I was 21 that summer.
Wow, all right.
Now I had built and sold the house when I was 20, because when I was 19, between my first and second year of college, I worked over the summer for a builder. And he just let me kind of run things now and then, and I watched how he did everything, and I helped him out on all facets of the building. So I got the idea the next summer, after that guy went off to Texas to build patio homes, as some of these guys are wont to do. So I decided I was going to build a house, and I remember my mother and her business partner, they had a little scrub lot up in Nashua, north of the river. Okay. So I said, hey Mom, I got a deal for you. I said, I'm going to build a house on your lot, and I'll split the profit with you. And she goes, what do you mean you're going to build a house? I go, yeah, I'm going to build a house and we'll sell it, and we'll split the money. You just have to put the lot in there. She goes, where are you going to get the money to build this house? I said, I already talked to John Ferguson over at National Commercial Bank, and he's going to loan me the money. And she goes, no, he's not. I go, he is. So my mom gets on the phone and she calls John, and she goes, John Ferguson? She goes, am I mistaken, or did you just loan my 20-year-old son $35,000? And he goes, well, yeah, Pat, is that a problem? She goes, if it's not a problem for the bank, it's not a problem for me. So that's awesome. So I did, and I built the house, and and the bank made me the loan on the condition that I would have an old retired builder named Harry Singer kind of shepherd me through and watch. And of course, he was doing that because he just loved it. He was retired. So and ironically, I just saw John at a holiday party over last winter, and we were telling that story to everybody.
That is awesome.
And he and I do business with the same bank these days. So
So this is the reason why I was asking that, right? Is one of the most often questions I get from people is like, how do they start? And I always feel like, and tell me if you agree, disagree, or if you have a different thought on it, people that ask that question just aren't the kind of people that do. It's the people that never ask the question.
I think some people will ask me, how did you get the money to do X, Y? How did you do it? And I go, well, the answer is I figured it out. A good example of the roofing thing is, I'm getting ready to go to college and still trying to think of ways to make some more money. And my mom comes in one day and says, we had a hailstorm. So she got a little check for the garage of her old office. It was the garage was 110 years old. And so she goes, I'll give you $275 of the insurance money if you'll roof it. And I go, well, yeah, okay, but I've never roofed a house. She goes, I know, I bought you a book. And she slid the book to me. So I read the book and I roofed it, and It wasn't pretty, but it didn't leak. And that, you just figure it out. And
right.
I think you just figure it out, and I think you just know. And I think you have to learn along the way that self-confidence is not the same as cockiness.
Yes.
Self-confidence,
I like that.
you know, you just have to, I don't want to say believe in yourself. I mean, that sounds a little bit, you know, contrived, but the real truth is, whenever things get tough along the way, I always say, oh, for 30 years I have always been able to run this business, and I will continue to do that no matter what the challenge is. And I think that people, and you got to have a little bit of a thrill about it. I mean, I go to Las Vegas and I won't gamble. I say, no, I do all my gambling, you know, in my business. I just control the house.
Yes, so that's the one vice I've never been able to understand.
Yeah.
I like a lot of other ones.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into them.
Get me some wine.
Yeah.
I'll give you some great stories.
Yeah. I've never understood gambling, and yet I feel like every day being an entrepreneur,
It's what you
keep
do.
Gambling.
Well, I think you know, the funny thing is, I've always told people, I mean, I love the thrill of the win, but I hate the loss worse.
Yes.
And you know, if I'm doing entrepreneurial things, I set this thing up. You know,
Yeah.
I make this work for myself. I am the house. I control the odds.
Yes.
You can't control all of them.
Nope.
And you know, but hey, we made it through COVID in business. When those young theater operators had the movie theater completely shut down, and their other bar, they rented a building from me downtown, the Crossroads, that was called Tapcade, and they were just completely shut down. I just kind of said, well, you know, we're all in this one together.
Yeah.
I said, if you know, just remember, if you go, we're all going. And I said, and remember this, it is easy to be successful. It is really challenging to remain successful sometimes. And I said, if you get through this, I will promise you there's probably no greater challenge than COVID presented to you. And so I think that's what you have to learn in life as an entrepreneur is, you know, just do it and just make it work for yourself and be logical. And, you know, certainly don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah, that's the hard one.
Yeah, that is a hard one. You know, when do you, as my business partner always says, you know, because we don't take investors, it's just two of us.
Yeah.
And he just says, we're going to success ourselves right out of business if we're not careful when we have 3 buildings going on at the same time.
Success ourselves right out of business.
Yeah, so, you know, there's something to be said. But I wake up every day feeling fortunate, you know, sometimes in the middle of the night, not so much, but, you know,
Right,
then you go,
right.
oh, it'll be fine, you know.
Yeah.
But the sun will be out.
All right, well, we're going to try and track down Elijah. I'm going to introduce you to Elijah from the I Am Foundation.
Okay.
And we'll just spend a couple minutes here talking to him, and then
Yeah. When I was, what's that?
Oh, yeah, I'm confused. I mean, that's a good compliment. I just don't know.
No. Screenland is just a little movie theater circuit. We have a theater up in North Kansas City. And what happened was, when I was your age, I was in high school. I was working my way through school and doing things, but I always loved movies. And they call it hyperactive back then. ADHD is what you might call it now. But I was about ready to drive my family nuts. So my mom was told, let the kid watch movies because I love movies. And so my mom and I had watched movies. And in high school, I saw 3 movies on election day, 3 old movies about U.S. elections, and decided I wanted to be in the film business. And so I went up to UMKC, and to get through college, I painted and roofed houses because I had to pay for it. And I got a film, radio, television degree. Then I got a law degree because I thought I was going to be a big producer. Then I went out to Hollywood and I worked on movie crews. You ever see they say key grip on the movie credits? Well, I worked as a grip.
what is a key grip?
A key grip is basically a stagehand. I would be told, go up and set a little flag up here to block the sun off of this guy. Go up and, maybe we're going to light a set. Maybe I'm going to push the camera dolly when we're following a shot or things like that. I'll tell you a quick little story. My favorite thing was when I was a kid, my brother and I were watching a little documentary about how they made a Western. And you know, in the old days, the cowboys and Indians, they had the guys going along on their horses, and they had an old camera car with the flatbed on the back, and they're filming it, and they had to crank it by hand. And I thought, man, that's cool. They're making movies. And so we're sitting there, we're gonna do this scene out in California in Hollywood, and we're gonna do this scene by the ocean, and we're gonna do a car chase scene. And they got a big flatbed truck, and they got a big camera up there, and they got everybody, and I'm looking around, and they go, okay, we gotta go. I got, Butch, gotta get off the truck, and I got off the shot maker, and I go, oh, you guys need a grip on here, don't you? And he goes, you really wanna do this, don't you? And I go, oh, my life, man. So they go, all right, got you a job. And so what happened was, Chuck Norris, the action star, his sons, Mike and Eric, were on this movie crew running the shot maker. So they put me right next to the camera, and the camera's out over the back of the truck, and they got me, and they put a belt around my waist and a belt around my ankles and leaned me out over the edge of the truck so I could hold a black flag to keep a shadow on the lens of the camera, because if not, the sun will make a purple streak in it. It's called the flare flag. So I'm there, and the camera operator's there, and he's got me like this to keep me steady, and he's going, and they go, action, and we go, and we do the whole thing. And so they get out there, and we almost flip the car, but we're staying there, and I stayed right in it, and we get done, and everybody's clapping and cheering, and it was cool as anything in the world. And the director comes up and goes, what do you think, Butch? And I go, I don't know what I think, but I know what I don't think. I don't think anybody in my law school class did this today.
No way.
It was fun. No, it's adventure, you know.
That is awesome.
It's fun adventure. And, you know, education, you know, you want to be an educated young man or woman, but you don't want to be defined about what you think you're supposed to be. And, you know, so I was very fortunate, and I got to do that. Did that for a couple of years, but I missed Kansas City. I love Kansas City. And so when I came back to Kansas City, I had bought some little houses in college, and I had to take care of them, and they were just little bitty houses. And I came back, and we started the Film Society of Greater Kansas City. Everybody know who Walt Disney was, the man, the person? Well, he was from where? Where's he from? Kansas City.
Yeah,
He grew up in Kansas City.
I had no idea. He was telling me about all the different. We have a huge, rich film history here, and I had no idea.
You know, anybody go to Central High School? Walt Disney, Central High School. He grew up at 3022 Bellefontaine. And so he had a little cartoon studio at 31st and Forest. And so my buddies and I started a nonprofit, and we are restoring that cartoon studio, and we're going to have a digital animation school in there so people can work there. But I really got interested in that, and so I decided to stay in Kansas City, and I became more interested in being behind the projector than the camera. So I started a screening room, and then in 2004 I started Screenland Theaters. At the same time, all that construction stuff I learned in college, I became very enamored with architecture. So I bought a little house, and I fixed it up, and I sold it, and I did a few more, and then I bought a building down in Film Row, which is the area where all the movie theaters had their distribution hub. And so I started doing that, and now I've been able to be fortunate and combine my love of movies and my love of architecture and real estate. And so, you know, it's a fun thing. So read about thankyouwaltdisney.org if you want to hear about it. But
what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, Giant, 1955. James Dean, Rock Hudson. I'm trying to think of one that. What's your favorite movie?
I don't have favorite movies, but I just watched this movie Get Out, and it was really good.
Get
I
Out
already
was.
watched it before, but like I watched it again, and I realized how good it really is.
It's really good. Matter of fact, the New York Times just named it one of the top 100 films of the 21st century. Get Out. Anybody seen Get Out? Jordan Peele. Oh, really, really good. What a favorite movie out here? Name me a favorite movie. You, right to you. What's your favorite movie?
Me?
Yep.
Yeah, can't see.
Both of you.
Actually, my favorite movie is probably here.
There you go. There was this one Heat movie a couple years back. It's called Bullet Train.
Oh,
Yes.
Bullet Train. Sure, sure. That's a fun one. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that's that. You what? Oh, you looked at me like you want to tell me your favorite movie. No.
Yeah, I want to interrupt for 1 second because you've shared some stuff in the car, which is on film, so I'm guessing it's okay for me to share it here.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, Butch's father passed away when he was 15.
15. Yeah.
15 years old. And his mother, he was the oldest of 4 kids, and he had to help start paying bills, right? So I think a lot of times we see somebody at this stage of their life and they've done all this and they have all the success, right? And we look at it and we're like, how do we get there? Where do we start, right? But the fact of the matter is nobody starts there, right? So to start from a home where at the age of 15 you lose your father, your mom's unable to pay the mortgage and needs help, and you have to go to work and start contributing. This is something that a lot of people, well, oddly enough, I believe that is the more common story to someone's success.
Oh.
Because I'll tell you, my kids are very unmotivated. It's hard to get my kids to, like, you know, I cleaned cafeterias to get my school lunch when I was a kid because I couldn't afford it, right? My kids don't have that need, so they don't get that. A lot, if you don't, when you lose your father and your mom needs your help and you have to come together as a family and make shit happen, that's where I think the drive and the ability and the confidence comes from in order to actually get here.
Well, I was lucky. I mean, Pat Rigby, my mother, you know, my siblings and I give her all the credit. She gave me self-confidence. And not everybody has that. I mean, you know, not everybody has somebody reminding them just how good they can be. And I will tell you something that's an absolute fact. Every single person here has the ability to do anything. And I mean anything. And I'll give you an example of, you know, we were talking about Walt Disney. You know, Walt Disney, when he left for California, he and his brother took Ub Iwerks, Rudolph Harmon, Rudy Ising, Hugh Harmon. They took about 7 or 8 guys with them who all became the foundation of all the cartoons, you know, Looney Tunes, Roadrunner, Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse. They were all of them started by guys from Kansas City. And somebody once asked Walt Disney, how did all of these talented people all end up in Kansas City in 1922? How were they all there and got out to California? And Walt Disney said, there are talented people in every single room. You just have to be able to give them the opportunity to use that talent. And that's why I firmly believe that there's not a single person in this room that can't be a Walt Disney or a Meryl Streep or a rocket scientist. I mean, we just now learned that some of the most famous people behind the early moonshot were all women. And you know what? 70% of my tenants on 63rd Street, I have 130 commercial tenants. 70% are women-owned businesses. So I mean, it's
women run the world.
Yeah. So sorry, I get
No. This is exactly. And so one of the things I love about Elijah and the I Am Foundation, the last time that we met up at the Children's of Mercy, Sister of Guadalupe Hospital, whatever that place was called. It took us 10 times to get the name right. Children's Mercy Hospital. One of the things that I thought was neat is when Elijah went around the room with everybody and asked them what their I Am was, right? I'm a huge believer in our mental outlook driving our real outlook, like our outcome. Our mental outlook driving our outcome, I guess is how I should say it.
Absolutely.
And so I love that that's one of the things that the I Am Foundation does with you guys. So anyways.
And we are thankful for you and all you do. I was sharing that Juliana asked, she's like, oh, who's that guy again? I said, yeah, that's our tax professional, our guru. Ellie, who's helping us raise all the money for the nonprofit. So we got to clap it up for you.
Thank you. Cool, all right, Butch. So it was, I love it when we get to actually go out and see Elijah and the I Am Foundation, the kids like actually out and doing their thing, right?
Yes.
It's kind of cool to get to watch. So, you know, it's been interesting to talk about like the impact that your mom made, the impact of like your father passing away and the responsibilities that put on your shoulder, the like the way in which you got started initially, like in college and buying a house, building a house, and just going out there and making shit happen. And I think that's amazing. I think it's the hallmark attribute of an entrepreneur, to be honest. So I'd love to talk a little bit about your time out in the film. Any hilarious stories that come from, like that was a really good one that's amazing to me that you got to work with Chuck Norris's brothers.
No, sons.
Yeah, that's incredible. Eric. Yeah. Any like lessons learned in a unique way, or any funny stories or anything that came out of your time in California or really anywhere?
Yeah, you know, when you're working movie crews, you work so many hours, 18-hour days, 6 days a week. And, my first movie was low budget, so we had cold meals, and it was long hours, and I believe my pay was $75 a day.
Ooh.
And that's from, making a little money, as a lawyer for a little bit before that, but I didn't care. It wasn't about the money. And I slept on a couch and had a lot of fun. But you do become sort of a family unit because you work so long together and you're around the same people, and literally you go to bed and you get up and you go right back to work. So I was on a film one time, and I was working grip, and this, I don't even remember the name of the film, but I remember they needed a grip, and so this guy named Cesar Gonzalez, who was from Colombia, he was kind of an experienced grip, and he took this job because he didn't have any work going, and it was only about 3 or 4 weeks left on the shoot. And so he comes on, and Cesar was very good, but very standoffish. And Cesar would put those sunglasses on, and he had that jet black hair, and he'd sit there like this, and he'd have his arms crossed, and he'd look around and just observe. And so I'd try to talk to Cesar, I'm 20-something-year-old kid, and he's like, "What you say? What you mean?" And then he'd just kind of watch. So I would stand up during shots. I would go and get my red Ray-Ban sunglasses, and I'd put them on. And then I would sit right next to Cesar, and I'd cross my arms the same way, and I would look the same directions he looked. So Cesar's just sitting there, and he kind of looks over. He goes, "What you doing?" And I said, "I'm your brother. I will stand next to you, my brother." He goes, "What you talking about?" And I go, "Oh, don't deny it. We're brothers. I come from Colombia, Bogota." So I start making up this story about how Cesar and I were brothers.
Yeah.
And so on the crew at lunch, I would tell everybody, I'd make Cesar sit with us, and I'd say, Cesar and I, and Cesar really did join a circus. That's how he got to America. But I said, we joined the circus. And I said, and Cesar made sure that I could get a job where I wouldn't be around the big lions because I was small enough and my blonde hair would make them, make them very, very hungry and think I was an appetizer. And Cesar would look over and he didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, and we worked in the circus, and then we worked and we did and I made up this whole story about the fabulous Corsican brothers. And I said we had a song and dance act named the Fabulous Corsican Brothers, and we were headliners down in Central America, but not many people saw us, and we had to take jobs as grips. So then I was driving the grip truck, which is a 5-ton truck. So I went and made signs for the side of the truck, and it said, the Traveling Fabulous Corsican Brothers Roadshow, and I put them on. So then all of a sudden, all the people on the crew were saying, "Oh, put one on the wardrobe truck," and so then I went over on my one day off, and I bought these little button kits, and it said, "I'm a fan of the Fabulous Corsican Brothers." And finally, the director comes up, he goes, "What the hell is the Fabulous Corsican Brothers anyway?" He goes, "Why are you not writing my movie here?" And I should have stuck with writing, but we had so much fun, and the whole crew would sit there, and they got to the point where they would just, defer to me and to Cesar and I like we were the producers of the movie.
That is
but
hilarious.
we had a lot of fun. Another good one, another good movie story was I worked on this film called In the Cold of the Night.
Okay.
And it was directed by a guy named Nico Masterakis. He was a Greek guy. And Nico just was driven, and he tended to fire a lot of people a lot of the time. And usually you had about a 50% survival rate of a full crew being on the movie at the end of the thing. He'd get mad and fire people. But for whatever reason, he liked me, and he heard me one day go, meep, meep, because I would do that all the time. I could do the road runner. So he would call me road runner, and I'd been running around, and he would sometimes point at me and go, meep, meep, and I'd do the meep, meep, and he'd laugh, and people loved it. Well, we were doing this piece, and on the film, where we're in in this Malibu, beautiful oceanside home, granite floors. And so the protagonist, the star of the movie, has to appear to be riding his motorcycle down these stairs through the house.
Oh.
And so, of course, you set the motorcycle, you take a couple of shots, you move the camera, pull zoom just to give it the illusion of motion, and then we do the next and the next. Well, it was a Harley, and it was heavier than hell. And it slipped, and it broke a big chunk out of the marble stairs. Oh, man, that was not a pretty moment.
Yeah.
And Nico wrote and directed all his films. And Nico sat there, and I didn't think about it. He goes, "Whose fault is this?" And I don't know why I go, "The writers." And he goes, and he looked at me, and everybody just held their breath. And he thought, and they thought it's over. And I looked at Nico, and I go, meep, meep. And he started to laugh. And he went down there and he put his hand over his face and he couldn't stop laughing. And he goes, "All right, meep, meep, just fix this mess." And I think, and the continuity woman, continuity girls they called her, said, "I think you just saved about 4 people's jobs." And I go, and so, he ended up actually casting me as a taxi driver in that movie.
No way.
Yeah, it was fun.
That is awesome.
But that was a fun time. Those
Well, the quick thinking and blaming the writers is hilarious.
were, except for then I forgot that he was the writer.
That's even funnier.
That's even funnier.
Because they're the idiot. He's the idiot that wrote that you got to do this with a motorcycle.
The script writer.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it occurs to me, oh, Nico wrote this movie.
Oh, that is hilarious.
But that was a fun movie. We had David Soul did a little bit piece in it, and we had Tippi Hedren did a little piece in it, and it was funny because when I was in college, we were on a ski trip, and I was in Colorado, and everybody went in to get something at the grocery store or something, and I was sitting in the car in front because I didn't want to go in there, and up next to me pulls David Soul. And I'm sitting there looking at him, and I had the window kind of half down, and he looks over and goes, "Hey, how you doing?" I go, "I'm pretty good, man. How you doing?" He goes, "Pretty good." And so everybody's getting back in the car, and then he's getting in his car, and I go, "Hey guys, that's David Soul." And they go, "It is not." I go, "No, it's David Soul, and he said hello to me." And they go, "Oh, bullshit, that's not David Soul." And David Soul looks over and goes, "Yes, I am, and yes, I did." So I had to tell David Soul that story on the movie crew a few years later.
Oh,
and I go,
awesome.
"I know you don't remember it." He goes, "No, I don't remember it." But he goes, "Sounds like what I would have said."
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it was fun. It was, it was just part of that adventure. I mean,
So is there anything in the movie or film business that like you had always wanted to do that you didn't get a chance and you regret not having done?
Direct to film.
Okay.
And I took that chance away from myself when I switched over to the projection side. So I look back sometimes and I go, well, I realized what I did like and what I didn't like. And so I kind of did what I liked, you know? I mean, there's always what if I'd stayed in Hollywood and I directed? But then I thought, no, what if I had spent most of my 30s and 40s working, 5-6 day weeks and film shoots, 12 hours is a short day.
Yeah.
And so, if I were going to do something like that, I would have tried to direct a short film, but that's okay. I had some fun here and we did some films in town that I worked on. And, we just really, and you can go down, when you get to Cherry Street, you can turn left and that'll take you into 601. But the adventures, the stories are just kind of, it's that life experience that a lot of people missed out on. I remember a lot of my lawyer buddies could not believe I was going to go just do it.
No, I think you had one of the most exciting lives of anybody that's ever gotten a law degree.
Oh, they said, hey, you just, and a lot of them later said, we just can't, I said, I'm so jealous because you did something so cool.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine and she was an attorney at one of the big firms, and she was always interested in how we, what I did and why I did it and what I did. And I said, well, Helen, I said, Helen Ostenberg. And I said, what are you doing? And she goes, well, I'm on a partnership track at Watson S, back then the biggest firm, and it was a 100-year-old firm. And I said, well, is that doing it for you? And she goes, well, no. And I said, well, then what's the question here? You're young. You want to be a partner in a law firm your whole life? I don't think you do. So then I talked to her. I was back in town for something, and she was working on the Paul Newman film that was Mr. and Mrs. Bridge. She took a sabbatical from work, and she worked on it, and she said, I had such a great time. And so I said, well, you know what's next? Go out to Hollywood. And sure enough, Helen went to Hollywood. She quit the firm, and then literally 2 years later, the firm dissolved after 100 years.
Oh my goodness.
But Helen goes out there. She ended up marrying and subsequently divorcing, but she married Robert Elswit, who is an Academy Award-winning cinematographer. He did all the David Mamet films.
Oh, wow.
She became a special effects producer. She worked with Wolfgang Peterson. She did A Perfect Storm. She did all these movies. And, one day I called her and I said, what's going on? I said, hey, next time you talk to your husband, tell him that Good Night and Good Luck was a masterpiece of cinematography, for Clooney. I think it was Good Night, Good Luck. And she goes, well, hang on. I'll just put him on the speaker. He's right here.
No.
Robert goes, well, Butch, I appreciate it. I've heard a lot about you. And I'm like, God, I'm talking to Robert Elswit. And so, yeah, it was,
wow.
Yeah. And when we got back, Ang Lee came to Kansas City and shot Ride with the Devil, and they used my screening room for dailies. And Ang ended up just being a good dude.
So I'm a huge fan of Chinese cinema.
Oh, yeah.
And when Hidden Tiger, Crouching Dragon was coming out, I went to New York and I saw it the opening day at Lowe's Theater on Times Square.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the single most incredible movie-going experience of my life, but one of the most incredible experiences.
He made that movie right after he made the Kansas City film, I think, or soon
wow.
after. And the funny thing is, I saw a PR shot of the film being made, and he's wearing this hat I gave him, Old Film Row, Kansas City, because they were going to donate some tables to the Film Society, and they called back and said, Ang says one condition. He goes, needs an Old Film Row hat. And I go, you got it. And so I gave an Old Film Row Kansas, because we had a history of the Film Row in Kansas City. And so fun stuff. But no, I live a charmed life. I really do.
Yeah. So all right. Well, we're gonna hop out. We're gonna go up to your balcony, I think, and do a quick little talk about these buildings that you own.
Let's go up there and kind of talk about the street a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So we're at 601 East 63rd Street, and this is one of many buildings on the street that we're gonna talk about here that you purchased, redeveloped. About how long ago?
Oh, about 10 or 11 years ago, a guy named Byron Pendleton and I, who had done business together when he was running a company down in the Crossroads, and his company rented a lot of space from me. And about 11 years ago, Byron said, we had to do some buildings together, because he was doing real estate at the same time on his own. And it's been a great partnership. It's certainly 1 + 1 = 3.
That's hard to find. That's good when you can.
And so we were, we were looking at a couple of things down in the Old Northeast. And I said, well, I've seen this building before, but I'll tell you something that interested me was a little 2-building package that I knew was for sale. And they were both vacant and somewhat collapsed.
But that Magnolia, and that one right there,
and the little A-frame building, the Billy's Juicery. And so we looked at it and we made an offer on it. And at the same time, the building we were in right now was a brick covered building, and it was about 95% vacant, had a couple of offices upstairs. A guy was here, and his company was kind of going away. And on the corner, there was a vacant building. So we got this idea that we would sort of work with some synergy here and a little critical mass. And so we made offers on this building, that package, and that building to 3 different groups to close within a month.
All at
And
once.
All at once.
Wow, that's ambitious. That's cool.
Yeah, so we did, and we worked with a couple different banks, and we renovated the Magnolia, which was a complete renovation. Then we renovated the little A-frame, which was an old bank building, and it was a woman named Robin Krause, and she now owns Billy's Juicery, which is a very, very popular restaurant, a couple of restaurants in the juicery. But what I liked about this street, much like the Crossroads was back in the early 90s, vacant. There was no Crossroads. Much like the Crossroads was in the early 90s, it was mostly vacant and a lot of opportunity. And when I looked here, I kind of thought of the way I approached my first building in the Crossroads. I said, well, you've got that Union Station that something's got to happen with. They're not going to tear it down. And you've got that vacant piece of ground at 17th and Central. Well, they'll probably put a hotel, but they'll do something with it. And so all these vacant properties in between, will probably be, influenced by that.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And of course, that's what became the Crossroads. And of course, getting a performing arts center, actually looking down at the Crossroads as opposed to the butt of a hotel building with loading docks,
Right.
That was just luck. But we came over here, and I said, well, what are the good influences around here? Why is it 70% vacant? Well, it was vacant because all the buildings were run down. For a while there, it was kind of a lot of drug treatment areas, and there was no real programming to it. The guy that had this building had a payday lending business that was going south. But what you did have was you had good housing to the north, good housing to the south, good housing to the west, and really pretty decent housing to the east and a lot of opportunity. And I said, we really have more of a vacuum. And I said, I've always known that if you have good residential, you can have good office space. Now, for my business, where we rent to small businesses, we don't rent big floors. We rent 2, 3 office suites, single offices. And so we did just that. And also we renovated them. The building that we're in right now, this would have been a brick wall with a window about that wide, that tall.
No, they're very stylish. It's one of the first thing I noticed coming up on the street is 616. I love that. This one is stunning. They're all like,
they all have architectural style, that mid-century modern. And this building, we sort of, when we took the brick off, we kept a wood band going around it to reflect that mid-century.
Was that your input, that mid-century? Was that something that you liked? You were drawn to that look?
I was very drawn to the look, and when we did it, we were thinking we want people to have lots of view and a lot of light coming in, and people love that. But what I also, in a kind of a neat ancillary way, we found out that people walking down the street were connecting to the building. They were looking up, and then people would wave. And they'd wave. And I thought, oh, you have just engaged the street. You've engaged the pedestrian environment. And so we went from little ugly buildings to ones where people could see out. We put all the glass, there was some more glass we put in that building. This building, we redid Magnolia. It was all boarded up. Down the street, we added the second floor to the building next to us.
Okay.
And then the next 2 buildings, we tore out all the old brick and doctors' offices where nobody wanted light. They wanted privacy. Yeah. And we made them all glass, but then we took the whole parking lot and lined it with wood, to give it that mid-century look and give the whole block a feel. And now we are 99.7% occupied. I mean, I think we have 2 single offices available for rent, and they're both like $600. So.
Okay, so let's go back and kind of summarize that vision that you had and the creation of it, right? So somewhere along the way you learned, like you said, the good residential.
Yes, good residential.
And you saw that this place was surrounded
by good residential.
Now, what made you feel like it was good residential? Was it the value of the home? Was it the schools? Was it just the quality of the neighborhoods? What?
Quality of the neighborhood. I mean, the houses weren't extraordinarily large. They are to the west, but they were well kept. It was the quality of the neighborhood, the quality of the people. What I really loved was the opportunity to engage a customer base from both west of Troost and east of Troost, and to integrate our small business community. And
Okay.
very proud to say that we have African American owned businesses, we have Latino owned businesses, we have.
You see, you have a high number of women-owned businesses.
Oh, we have 70% of our entrepreneurs are women-owned business, and I think that's just because there's been a vacuum for so many years for women to be engaged in the business community at a level that they always should have been.
Yeah.
And minorities as well. And you know, I love the fact that we have a great community here,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, it's an opportunity. You know, it's you don't have to give people money; just give them an opportunity.
Correct.
And give them mentoring. I mean, doesn't matter the color of your skin.
You mentioned something. You teach people how to use QuickBooks.
Well, we will help some of our tenants learn to use QuickBooks because we want them to have a basic set of business skills, and you know, along the way.
I mean, how cool is that? Whose landlord is teaching them?
Yeah, I wish more
never
people
heard
would
of that.
take advantage of. Oh yeah, we have a very personal relationship with the tenants.
Yeah.
Every single tenant has my cell phone number, and you know, they know if they really want something done, call Billy the maintenance guy or Aaron the manager. But
Yeah.
they feel like that I'm accessible,
Yes.
and I want them to succeed.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of businesses that were startup businesses that rented from us. There's a huge ad firm called Bishop McCann, and they are international promotions for golf tournaments, everything, and they're downtown Kansas City, and they're, you know, they have millions in revenue. They started as 3 guys around a table they built in the old mail room of my first building in 1995, and it was just
Wow.
but they said, can you rent to us? I said, sure, it's $1,000 a month. I mean, you guys could, you know, sweep the halls if you need to, you know. But it's been a, I think also small office space was always kind of frowned upon by a lot of the real estate community. It's a lot of work, you know, where somebody on a floor might send out one invoice and have a national.
Everyone wants the easy button. Just
Yeah.
rent the whole building or a whole floor.
And it's done, and you just, you know, I remember the guys, I was on vacation in Florida, and they were all playing tennis going, we own strip malls, never go to them ever. And years later, my buddy said, yeah, they all lost their strip malls. Turns out my small business tenants were resilient.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't want to work at home. That's why they were here in the first place. It is what made us America.
Yeah.
It is the thing that we are all about. And diversity of this business community only makes us a better business community.
Absolutely.
You know. So, yeah, so
Incredible.
I've been lucky. But that's the story of 63rd. We call it Brookside East. One of these days on my sign, I'm going to put up there, the Sisters of 63rd, because I had 6 sets of sisters that were all in business together, so I was going to put them all up on the sign. And
That would be
I
incredible.
had 2 salon owner sisters, video company owned sisters, and then 2 more little small entrepreneurial enterprises owned by sisters.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Well, Butch, that is an amazing story to end with. I want to thank you for your time.
it's been my pleasure.
I love the
appreciate
little lessons learned and the things that you're able to share.
Oh.
I absolutely love your personal story from your teenage years. And
Oh,
I know a good friend of mine, well, a good friend of ours, right, just lost her father at the age of 19. And it can be it can be a life-changing experience, but I love it when people have those life-changing experiences, and it's what propels and drives them.
Yep. I told her. I had another friend whose husband died tragically, and she had 2 young kids to raise. And I just kind of went to the funeral, and I just said, Kate, you just be Pat Rigby. And I told her the story about my mom, and she called me later and said, Butch, I cannot tell you. I was so worried about my children. And I said, just be Pat Rigby. Your children will be fantastic.
That is excellent.
Yeah.